Hey everyone, it's Katie and Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hi everybody.
And we're in a moving car! For the first time since like June maybe? We're in our car and driving, and we're driving home from the movie in driving home the movie. Yay! Happy holidays! It's after Thanksgiving and we finally have our car in working condition again, which means we can actually go to see movies again. This is amazing. It is amazing. So of course, we had to see a particular movie that came out last weekend because you guys were all waiting for it, because it is very up my alley, and I have opinions about this franchise. We went to see Justice League. So if you recall from my video, in which Mike was not there for that video. I did a video with some friends of mine that I took to see Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. Or was it Dawn of Justice, Batman vs. Superman? It doesn't matter. In which I was mostly disappointed and frustrated. I wished that I could have liked it better. Honestly, so this is the thing, and I'll say this up front. Honestly, what I was hoping when I went into Batman vs. Superman, I was hoping for how I felt leaving this movie, which is, well, it's a mess, but I actually ended up enjoying most of it, and I'm optimistic about the future of the franchise. I left this going, okay, it was a mess, but I liked a lot of it, and I'm actually optimistic for the franchise. So I can't really be that mad at the parts I didn't like. You know, I will be mad. I'll be mad, and I will definitely rethink this over and be frustrated that they weren't able to do a better job of it.
You know, I can kind of agree with that assessment. I kind of was going to say it reached the my entire highest hopes for what Suicide Squad would be.
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, like, Suicide Squad was a very different movie. Like, what we thought we were going into was a very different movie. But, yeah, I was hoping for kind of... For Suicide Squad, I was hoping for, you know, funny bits. I was hoping for, like, a sense of camaraderie and teamwork. And I was hoping for, like, I was just hoping to enjoy, even if it was messy. And a lot of it I didn't really get to enjoy. And here... I feel like, you know, my friend Matt Santori, who writes about comics, I think he described the editing in this movie like a comic book, in terms of like it being kind of the way there were certain shots and the way it kind of flowed, which meant that like it borrowed from a lot of the comics, and not necessarily in a way that made it a super coherent movie, but it's not like it wasn't like it didn't work in different ways, I guess. It was very much, whereas I feel like Wonder Woman earlier this year had it had better cinematography. It had a very different look and feel to it. This felt very much more like a popcorn flick. And not all of it worked, but it worked better than it had in a long time. That's kind of how I'm going with it. So I don't even know where to start with the plot. Basically Batman decides to get the team together. Wonder Woman kind of agrees, but Batman's already been starting to do it. But Wonder Woman definitely comes up because she gets a message from Themyscira that the villainous...
Someone invaded Themyscira.
Yeah, that someone invaded... It doesn't matter. It's Steppenwolf, which is a character that, as someone who reads comics, I completely forgot was a person in the, like, DC universe, because it's like, who? What? But he is going to be stealing the mother boxes, which are these, like, portals of energy. These energy boxes. They're MacGuffins, basically. But in Kirby's space stuff for DC, they're a major component to space travel and like basically massive boxes of power. And so they already have one of them, and they need to try to protect the other two, so they get a team together that is Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Barry Allen as the Flash, and then Cyborg. And then I mean, I don't even know if this is a spoiler at this point, but like in the middle of it, Batman decides they have to revive Superman. They're like, we just need to bring Superman back to life. And this is probably the part of the movie that is, it's one of those things where it, both in the context of the movie and also as an audience member, it's, do the ends really justify the means, in that this is a terrible, like, ethically unsound idea that ends up working, and like, spoilers, Clark is mostly fine about it. Like, he gets over the fact that, like, that they resurrected him fairly. Like, it's not that I have a problem with them getting over the resurrection part, because I feel like that's actually fairly, if he had become very like somber and angry about it for the rest of the movie, I would have probably been really frustrated with the movie. But but at the same time, like, Bruce does something arguably really not okay by having this happen, and then there are no consequences for Batman's actions, and they don't really ever address it.
And it's weird that Superman doesn't turn out exactly like Zod did in the, you know, original Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because...
Magic? Barry's lightning?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could arguably say that because Clark's heart wasn't corrupted, like, he was, you know, he was able to retain, whereas with Zod, his true form was like a monster, maybe. If we're really trying to reach out, you know? I will say that there's a part where you think Bruce says he has a contingency plan in terms of Clark, and you think it's one thing and it ends up being something else, and I will give the movie credit that it actually did the thing I wanted them to do with that. There are parts of this movie that they actually do the things I want them to do instead of the things that I thought that they would do instead. So yeah, I don't want to give away too much, honestly.
So let's just get into spoilers.
Well, okay, so I'm just gonna say, the way they handled Diana, I'm gonna have to figure out how much I'm not okay with it and how much I am okay with it. I've seen complaints, I've seen criticism of how Diana how she's framed in this movie, and I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I think someone said similar things about Lois, but I also have mixed feelings about it. There are actually certain ways that Diana is framed in this movie that arguably, if we didn't just have Wonder Woman earlier this year, and we saw how she was shot in terms of, like, the camera, like the way the camera, like, looks at her in Wonder Woman compared to how it does in Justice League, like, there's a pretty
harsh difference. It wasn't as bad as I was anticipating, but also my bracing for badness is pretty, you know, I'm already bracing for badness. So the fact that it was slightly better than my fears doesn't really mean that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, but I can think of, like, maybe 3 or 4 shots that were just not done well with her. The CGI was not super great.
like I said, it reads like a comic book. And with comic books, there are going to be some, especially in superhero books, there are going to be some panels that look crappy. And that's kind of how it felt like with this. It felt like there were some panels that were just like, well, we don't really need to work that hard on it. So CGI, like Steppenwolf looked terrible throughout. He had no personality. It was a pretty weak sauce villain. I also didn't really care that much because, like, I thought I was more pleased that there was at least some sense of the characters that, like, the heroes that are being set up. Which, if I had to pick between, like, a villain who I knew was going to be defeated, getting the most, you know, focus character-wise, or the actual characters that I know are going to be the mainstay of the universe, I'm okay with, like, those guys getting it, you know?
I kind of really thought, because Steppenwolf was so underdeveloped, that we were going to get Darkseid at the end of the movie.
Oh, I thought, well, okay, should we just go into spoilers?
Yeah, we're in spoiler time.
Okay, I didn't know we were in spoilers. Well, here, officially, spoilers. Yeah, so, no, we don't see the Darkseid. I thought, because Steppenwolf kept mentioning Mother, that we were going to get, Granny Goodness.
Granny Goodness would have been a better villain for this movie.
Here's the thing, I would have heard if Granny Goodness, though, was in this movie. That's the thing. Like, that's why I think a few weeks ago, or like last week, no, it definitely was last week, Mike was like, hey, you want to make bets on what, like, character reveal is going to be at, like, could be at the end of the credits on Justice League? And I told him that, that, like, there clearly wasn't, because I would have heard about it already. I definitely would have heard about if there was, like, someone that I actually cared about, or any at all. So I wasn't expecting anything.
But here's my point. Like, every single DC Justice League, DC EU, whatever universe movie that we've had so far has gone out of their way to reveal the existence of a new character in the universe.
Yeah. Well, we did get that one reveal at the very end.
Yeah.
But, and that's the thing, but that's what I'm saying. I would have known about the casting of a major character, and the major character that we did see at the end of it was,
Slade Wilson.
Slade Wilson. I was about to say, not Deadpool, because basically, I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
Deathstroke. I knew that. But anyway, so I think one of the biggest issues in the movie is the fact that one of my biggest problems with it in terms of the pacing is once Steppenwolf gets the third mother box, everybody's fairly calm about the fact that, like, he's about to, like, there's no sense that he has to take his time getting to where the other mother boxes are, you know?
It feels like there's no urgency.
Yeah, there's no urgency. Like, Diana, they have Cyborg looking for the mother boxes, but then, like, Diana and Bruce have a drink together as they deal with the fact that, oh yeah, Bruce was like an asshole to her. And he does apologize. And to be fair, the rest of the team, clearly, like, is on Diana's side when Bruce is, like, brings up Steve Trevor. But that brings me to, I think, the biggest problem is that they do, in terms of how Diana is, while I am actually, and I went to bat for Steve Trevor in the Wonder Woman review. I did. And I think that it's perfectly fine to talk about his relationship to Diana and how it was handled in the movie. But we have Bruce basically accusing Diana, and Diana earlier on talking, kind of framing it this way too, that, like, that all of the reasons why she shut herself away was because Steve died. And framing a lot of her heroicism around this one male character. And it just needed, like, it needed another round of, I think the script needed another, like...
round of duct tape?
Yeah, like, or it just needed fine-tuning so that it was less about specifically about Steve. And I think it almost gets there, honestly, where it's her going... I think she says it later on that, you know, it's one thing for me to occasionally come out of the shadows and fight, but it's another thing for me to lead and to ask other people to lay down their, you know, potentially lay down their lives, because when I look at them, they're all Steve. And that, I felt like, was the part where it almost redeemed for me, because then it's not about I lost my true love, it's I see good people dying. And I don't want them to be inspired to lay down their lives because they see me doing heroic deeds, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't perfect. And again, the whole thing with Bruce, like, basically not having any consequences besides some broken, like, messed up, like, shoulder or bruises. In terms of, like, consequences for bringing Clark back. No, everything actually turned out great. But that being said, and I don't think I mentioned this before, this is the best Clark has been. My co-host on Supergirl Gab, Chris Haley, DM'd me right after he saw the movie, and he said to me, I cried during this movie, and I was like, happy tears? And he was like, this is the closest this is like the Superman I've been wanting to see on this, like, this is what I've been wanting to see from them since I saw the Man of Steel trailer. So I was like, okay, I guess I think I need to watch this movie, because I was on the fence for a little bit. I was like, maybe I'll wait. But he convinced me, and I will say that this is clearly Cavill going, like, I really want to make a good Superman. Like, I want to make a good Superman movie. He gets to smile in this movie. Like, him and Cyborg have actually, like, a really nice rapport towards the end. Actually, Cyborg and Diana have a really good rapport, as do Barry and, like... Which gets me to my other point. I'm jumping around a lot. But yeah, I actually really like what Henry Cavill does with Superman in this movie. He has, as soon as he's given a chance to actually have kind of sweetheart Clark Kent, and frankly, the movie actually does a pretty good job of framing Superman. Like, I think it's Bruce that says, the world needs Superman, but our team needs Clark. So it's not just Superman is the strongest, it's we need Clark there. That's the glue to keep this team together.
He's the leader, he's the heart.
Yeah. Even though they do make it, like I said, I didn't mind the idea of Diana deciding, okay, yeah, I need to actually, like, this team needs me to help lead, you know? Mm-hmm. It still was really shitty how they came around to it. And so the other thing I actually really appreciate, and I mentioned it before the spoiler warning, there's a part where Bruce is trying to convince them that they need to raise Superman from the dead, and they're like, well, what happens if his soul isn't there, you know? And he says, I have a contingency plan. And so, of course, we're thinking, like, oh, he created another spear out of kryptonite, you know? I immediately went to kryptonite because, like, that's what Bruce just keeps having a supply of. This is, like, a thing. And instead, it was that he actually listened to Diana and brought in Lois Lane. And Lois is the one to bring Clark back to his senses. And then there is a scene in the cornfield with Clark and Lois at his old house. And I've heard people say that this is, like, majorly Joss Whedon in terms of, like, weakening a female character, because she talks about how she hasn't been strong without him. And I'm really torn between this because on one hand, yeah, and it is very much in Joss Whedon's like where, yeah, he trope. There are a couple of Joss Whedon tropes in here that I went really because like his hands are all over it, and considering the last like few months and behind the scenes stuff with him in general, it's, you know, it's a little icky. But this scene, like in general, like some of the directing he has with women in this movie is a little ugh.
And it's hard to also tell which parts are his decisions and which parts are Zack Snyder's decisions.
Yeah, but I think the cornfield feels pretty him. That being said, I kind of don't mind parts of it because I feel like it's okay for Lois to be struggling. I think it helps, honestly, that before this, we got to see her talking to Martha Kent, and basically Martha encouraging her. First of all, it was really nice to see Martha and Lois are like on good terms, that they care about each other. I like the fact that Martha was encouraging her to write again. I didn't mind that. I mean, like...
And that was also a thing that they didn't need to do in the movie, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, like, I didn't mind that. I actually thought that was good. I saw someone else get mad because Martha accidentally calls Lois thirsty, like the thirstiest woman he ever met, and then she realized it's hungriest. In terms of, like... And I know someone got really annoyed. Someone on, like, my Twitter feed got really annoyed at that. It wasn't a deal breaker for me in terms of... I was just happy that there were some jokes in this movie, to be honest. But again, it was just like, could it have been better? Yeah. And again, with having the scene in the cornfield, I still felt like it was still mostly a really touching scene. I didn't mind it as much. And honestly, I really like Amy Adams and Henry Cavill as Lois and Clark, even if some of the writing for them is not always the best. I'm excited to see them actually get to maybe do these characters, because I see them in interviews, and the way they talk about these characters is really good. They clearly get what's good about these characters. So I'm hoping that this can be a fresh start for Superman, because Clark looked good in this movie. Yeah,
and I thought that they really upped the color on
it was a brighter. I mean, the whole movie was lit better. Even Gotham actually had some softer lighting.
Oh, also, you know what I loved?
What?
Gotham and Metropolis was both Chicago. I kept looking around at the cityscapes, and it's like, I recognize that. That's all just around...
Yeah, I know.
That's all just around Grant Park.
I think our friend
Millennium Park.
Our friend Blau said that they definitely recognize that Metropolis was...
You could see it was the Stone Containment Building, and it substituted for both Gotham and Metropolis.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I know there are tons of things else. So I really actually like Cyborg is one of the only characters that gets this sort of arc in this. I mean, Aquaman has sort of one, but I think alright, so I'll get to Aquaman really soon. But I feel like I think it's Ray Fisher plays Cyborg, and he has the biggest arc in this because he doesn't know if he's man or machine, and he's struggling to find himself as a person, and Diana talks to him and convinces him to at least, try to help them, and
they're totally playing up this whole mother box connection thing with him.
Yeah, and there's this real sense of he doesn't know if the technology that's part of him is part alien. There's definitely some parts of that. There's a lot of... Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. A lot of the Blue Beetle stuff.
I thought the exact same thing. It really reads a lot like the Blue Beetle stuff, like specifically Jaime Reyes, if we're being clear. Yeah, there's a lot of like Blue Beetle stuff in here, and I also really I have mixed feelings about the Flash in this movie. So here's the thing, I don't know. I have to believe this was intentional. I think he's supposed to be neurodivergent, right?
Okay.
Like, because this seems very like on the spectrum. Like, that's how Barry Allen read to me in terms of, like, his nervousness. That being said, he almost leans, like, the performance leans so hard into it. I don't know. I'm a little torn about it. That being said, I honestly really liked the friendship between, like, the slow friendship between Cyborg and the Flash. Because there's some really nice moments. There's a moment where they're both talking about how they got their powers, and Barry says,
"Where are the accidents?"
So we're the accidents, and they're both like, "Huh, yeah, I guess so." And it's really cute. And the fact is that they're kind of the younger guys. They're the ones that haven't been doing this very long. Again, I'm interested to see whoever takes on. I don't even know who's doing the Flash movie now. But I'm interested to see how that's going to be handled. I honestly really want to see a Cyborg movie now. I'm down. I'm honestly, like, I think that he's the part that actually excites me a lot, because the performance was really strong. And again, like, there's a part where Cyborg and Superman have a really good moment where they're both just kind of like right after they've saved everyone, but like they both got like thrown back, and they're both like, "Oh my God, it hurts so bad." It was a really fun moment. I also really liked Alfred. Alfred gets to be like, not snooty, he gets to be a smartass, and I love smartass Alfred. Besides that, I'm trying to think there's anyone else. Oh, well, you talk a little bit. Is there anything that you've been thinking of that...
Let's see here. You could talk about Aquaman in a second, but,
Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the part that...
Aquaman I had hopes for, but it was kind of blah.
It wasn't great. It was okay. There's a part when he goes to Atlantis, and I thought he already... Here's the thing. I thought he already had been there before, and it's really weird to me. Like, it's this weird bit of exposition. It's the only time you see Mera, which is a shame. And you have no sense of who she is. I don't think she's ever named. And she basically says, "Oh, you're the son of the queen." And he's like, I didn't realize they hadn't met. I thought that they were already potentially married at that point, or at least betrothed or something. I had no sense that they didn't know each other until they started talking, and she's like, "Oh, I know who you are," and he's like, "Well, I'm no one, and also I'm not going to even ask who you are." It was honestly maybe the worst scene in the movie for me, which made me really sad because I like Mera a lot, but it was so disjointed from everything else.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I know that she's been in this movie for like forever. I didn't even
understand what they were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So that was probably the weakest part for me. I thought he was okay, but he didn't really have an arc. He was fine. It was fine. It was okay. No, what I was going to say was, Barry Allen's dad is played by, let me try to find him. Hope I didn't go too far. I know it was pretty low in the IMDb. Sorry, it might take me a minute. Do you have anything else to say while you're...
I thought it was really interesting how they kept giving them scenes to fight in where Barry can run around in a circle around the room.
Yeah.
And also, this is another thing. This is a minor little nitpick I have with the movie. I don't like the way they make Barry Allen look when he's running really fast.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's super visual effects heavy, and it looks worse than it does on, like, the Flash TV show.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because there's nowhere to... You don't know where to focus your eyes at. And I'm trying to find the point, and it's like... There's just too much visual clutter.
I'm
I
also
want a clear, focused picture when Barry Allen's running.
I will say a fun tidbit is that Barry Allen's dad is played by Billy Crudup, who you might remember as being Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen. So they're bringing that in, which I thought was really funny. Especially because, and this was the other thing, I was the only person who laughed at this, and I don't even know if it was intentional, but I actually chortled out loud. So there's a part, and I think, okay, it was Diana and Bruce walking, and Diana's talking about how Themyscira, like, they have the laws that they can't leave Themyscira. Yeah. And Atlantis is on the bottom of the ocean. They're not going to help. And the only other people is, like, the world of man. That's who fought those three peoples fought Steppenwolf back in in ancient times. And so Bruce says, like, well, if, Themyscira can't help and Atlantis can't help, I don't know what the world of man's going to do. They think the doomsday clock is always, like,
Always has a snooze button.
Always has a snooze button. And I was the only one who laughed at doomsday clock. I don't know if they were trying to make the reference to the right now happening thing, or if it was just like a coincidence. But there is a comic thing happening, a comic event happening right now called Doomsday Clock that is basically DC once again milking the cow that is Watchmen. And I was the only one who laughed at Doomsday Clock being name dropped.
Well, I kind of thought they were more referencing the real Doomsday Clock type of thing.
I can't not think that this was actually, like, included just to make me, like, look like an idiot being the only person to laugh at.
Well, it was a funny line.
I mean, it was a funny line, though, because this is literally a thing that's happening in DC Comics right now.
It was a funny thing. It was a funny line because the, Doomsday Clock type of thing.
I know, but it was also hilarious to me, the person who knows this, and I hope that anybody...
We found it funny on multiple levels. Yes, we get it.
Yes, there were layers. 2 layers. But I was the only one, and then I looked at you and I was like, because of the thing... Oh, well, yeah. The other thing that actually made me, like... I think I was the only person who clapped at this, but after they beat the bad guy, Cyborg does say booyah, and... as someone who knows the cartoons, I got really excited, and I'm not ashamed to say that I clapped. I was very happy about that. So besides that, what other references? I'm not entirely sure, but I thought possibly that there was a Catwoman reference towards the end when we see during the montage when we see Diana taking care of foes. Because there was definitely a woman walking out of a museum in handcuffs. But then again, they might be casting someone for her, so it might not have been. I did like the fact that at the end so Lois is doing this big, voiced over kind of speech about bringing light back, and where she's clearly writing again. And there's a part where you get to see what all the different characters are going to do next. Like, Aquaman goes back to the ocean, presumably to actually get his shit in order. And Cyborg is working with his dad again. And Barry has started working for the CSI division in Central City. And I forget what Bruce is doing.
Bruce is just always Batman.
Bruce is just always Batman. No, that actually is true, because you see the bat signal. And then, but you get to see Diana, because one of the things she said was that she's not, like, fighting crime in the outside. She just, like, goes in and runs away. And you get to see her actually taking care of some goons, and then talking to some kids. So... and you know, and like talking to them and like and being like a full on hero, which I actually really liked. I liked the idea that that's like her new status quo.
Also, her opening fight was great.
Her opening fight was pretty good. It was
Even
really
though
good.
when the guy said, we're going to level 4 city blocks, I'm like, okay, so then you have like 8 explosives planted around the city?
When she threw it up, I don't know, like that wouldn't even blow up the whole building. That like, it blew up the air. It was very comic booky in terms of like making no goddamn sense, but that's no excuse, honestly. So, besides that, I'm trying to think there's anything else I wanted to say about this movie. It is a mess. It's a mess.
The Bruce's opening was pretty good. But I totally would have liked better to have the opening be Cyborg. Actually, like, because, like, Cyborg's intro is so weird because he's not fighting crime beforehand, but it's like, we need your help. And it's like, well, who is Cyborg? You know?
Yeah.
An opening thing where he's just preventing street crime would have been pretty great, and then all of a sudden the bug shows up, and then maybe Batman comes in because he's chasing the bugs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's also a part where like Bruce says that they think that Cyborg is dead, but then later on he tells Diana, you need to find him, and then I was like, but you thought he was dead. What changed?
Yeah, the whole Cyborg stuff early is muddled.
Yeah.
And I think opening with him would have been a stronger thing of who he is and what he's been doing and why they need him.
Yeah. I will say, I think that the way Superman is handled in the last third of the movie is probably the saving grace of the movie in general, because it is a mess. But I like the fact that they let Henry Cavill actually be, like, he sounded like Superman. He actually sounded like the Superman that I think a lot of us were hoping to see in these movies. And while
aesthetics aside, this is probably one of the better DC movies. It's not as good as Wonder Woman, but it's still up there.
Like, at least I would say, like, it's probably I would argue that it's probably the best of the ones in this canon, besides Wonder Woman. Like, I'm talking about, like, you know, Wonder Woman, and then, like, honestly, I still feel like Man of Steel is probably a more solidly constructed movie, but in terms of, like, plot, and in terms of, like, where, like, things making sense, you know, consequence-wise. But I also feel like there are parts of this movie that I like more than Man of Steel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I really feel like while this movie is a mess, and I'm going to keep saying it, I feel like it's still a good sign of potentially things getting better for the franchise. And I like a lot of what it tried to do, even if it wasn't successful at everything. And I feel like it needs to get at least that much credit. And I would actually watch this movie again. I don't know if I would watch a lot of the other movies again. I would actually honestly watch this movie again. And I'm excited to see these characters interact again, which is something I could not have said about Batman vs. Superman. You know? Yeah. So, in closing, I feel like if you really love these characters, it's worth it to give it a watch. Whether you do it now or when you rent it, I think it's worth it. Or stream, whatever. I feel like it's definitely worth a watch. And I think it's a good sign to keep your eye on the upcoming individual movies. Because there's a lot of potential for things to improve on the franchise altogether. I say that tentatively because you never know. But yeah, and again, there's definitely stuff that I will probably get more complainy about on my Twitter in the days and weeks to come about this movie as I mull it over.
You know what would also been cool? If, like, just after Steppenwolf's defeated and they all zoom up through the Mother Box wormhole,
Also, that didn't make any sense to me.
Well, the mother box always makes wormholes.
All right, fine.
But like that's their normal like function, making wormholes between places. But if right at the end, Darkseid just showed up to go, I am threatening you, I am threatening you, I am threatening you, goodbye. And he just leaves.
Yeah, maybe.
I wanted something from Darkseid because...
What if he was a baby in this? Because that has precedent in the comics.
Whatever. I just wanted like...
I will never get over the fact that for a decent amount of time, Darkseid was a baby. Like, they turned him into a baby. There was a baby Darkseid, Mike, and it was not that long ago. It was in the last, like, year and a half.
But I remember when, like, in Justice League, maybe Unlimited, or it was Justice League, and it was just after a Apocalypse plot was foiled, and he just came down and threatened Superman and then left. I could have sworn I remember an episode like that, where it was like, you foiled my plans, congratulations, I'll be back to kill you next time, and then bye-bye.
Okay, I will say one more thing about this movie. One, I'm really sad that in the very, very ending credits, that when spoilers again, Lex Luthor talks to Slade Wilson. I had to think to Slade Wilson and is like, yeah, we should form our own league, or like a league of our own. I'm like, how dare you not say Legion? Just say Legion. Let me have this. Say maybe a Legion of Doom. I wanted it so bad. Even if they didn't get the of Doom, I wanted them to name drop Legion.
I know, and all it made me think of was the movie with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, exactly. But, no, I'm looking forward to whatever stupid shit comes out of the Lex Luthor, like, getting a league together. I will also say that Barry Allen, when he's talking about himself, says that he knows sign language, gorilla sign language. We're gonna...
That's great.
We're gonna have Ape City. I know it's coming. Or Gorilla City. We're gonna have it, damn it. We're gonna have... there has to be. What other reason would they make that detail?
To be funny to people like
Gorilla
us.
Grodd is gonna happen on the big screen. I know it already happened on the TV show, but we're gonna get Gorilla Grodd, damn it. I'm very excited about this.
I mean, good Gorilla Grodd would be nice. I didn't care for the TV version.
It was okay. They do what they can. They have a budget of about $10, and most of that goes to Barry running.
Hey, you know what? It looked so much better than it did in this movie.
I know. Oh, god damn it, we forgot to mention. So a couple more things, and then I swear we'll be done. So one of the things that was totally clearly Joss Whedon, and that actually pissed me off, because he did it in Ultron too, is he had Barry Allen really quickly, like, during a fight, fall on top of Diana and have his head right against her chest. And he did the same goddamn thing with Bruce Banner and Black Widow. He did the same thing in Ultron, and he did it again here, and it pisses me the hell off that he did that, because there was no reason to. Now, Barry had the good sense to then get up immediately and was clearly really nervous, like embarrassed about it. But still, it was just one of those things where, like, it was really, really frustrating. So, but the one...
And also, there was, like, the whole time where basically Wonder Woman had, like, 4 upskirt shots.
Yeah, there were upskirt shots. And then there was also this thing where Aquaman is accidentally holding the lasso of truth, which would have been fine. Honestly, it would have been fine with that scene if he didn't, like, mention how like, beautiful Diana was in the middle of it, which felt, like, kind of inappropriate. Like, everything else about him, like, having insecurities and, like, and feeling like he's part of two worlds and then realize he's holding the lasso and then he's, like, mad about it, that was fine. But the fact that they had to be like, oh, you're so beautiful, and, like, I know that our people have you know, fought with each other in the past, but, you know, that's old news, and, like, I wasn't around for that. Like, that part felt so Joss Whedon-y, and I was just like, just stop. Anyway, but I will say...
Oh, you know what?
What?
There's also no real, like, you remember in the Avengers they had that one pull-away scene where where it's like a one-camera shot, but you see everyone fighting together?
There were some of those, but it was very...
But it was also very, like, disjointed. Like at time, like it wasn't a one camera shot.
Yeah, there was. I will say there was a shot towards the end with the trio with Aquaman or with Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. That was actually pretty good after they won everything.
Yeah.
And I forget what the line was, but there was a really actually pretty good moment. But anyway, so I will leave with this, that no matter what else, I can appreciate that one of the cutscenes was the iconic Flash Superman race. And it was pretty cute. Like, it was really cute. Here's the thing, and we haven't talked about this, but, you know, there was the whole thing about Henry Cavill's upper lip and it being weird. And yes,
I never caught it once in this movie looking weird. Did you notice it?
It was like the whole time.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe.
But hey, maybe it's a good sign, right? That you didn't notice.
I didn't. Well, like, I was looking for it at first, and then I didn't notice it. And I was just like, okay, so maybe it's okay.
I was trying to not look at it, to be honest. Okay. But the point is that, like, while that was true, honestly, his performance was really good. And there's a part when they're getting ready to do this race. Oh,
and also you said that they might as well have just let him have a full beard.
Yeah.
Because that's very Death of Superman-esque.
Yeah, yes. They should have. But there's a part, and then, like, if they had to do when he had actually shaved or whatever, they could have still, like, then they could have done the, you know, thing for, like, the last few moments or whatever. It was not as bad when he didn't have to talk. When he did talk, you could see it pretty bad. But anyway, so he says, though, like, so, and if you lose, you have to quit the team, right? And Barry just, like, suddenly gets really nervous, and he's like, yeah, I'm kidding. He's like, that's not funny. That's not fair. It was okay. I'm gonna watch it again. I think it's well worth checking out.
It was a good movie.
It was a good popcorn movie that had a lot of messiness to it, but it was a big improvement on everything except for Wonder Woman, honestly, and I'm okay. I feel like this is them trying to salvage the franchise a little more, and just make it more coherent. I'm hoping to see more. I honestly liked a lot of the character stuff, and it didn't feel nearly as dark as the rest. And again, for all the other messiness, I'm sure I will get into it at some point on Twitter and complain about it. So you can totally check me out there. So Katie and Mike.
Hi, everybody.
JustPlayingSomething.com. I'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.